I started playing baseball whenever I was 4, and so really from the time that I could ever remember, I was playing baseball, or at least throwing a baseball, and at that point my dream was to become a professional baseball player. So my 5th grade year, I ended up growing 7 inches, and so all of my ligaments got stretched out. By my 6th grade year, I ended up having a lot of shoulder issues. In high school, I actually ended up tearing up my right shoulder, tore my labrum cartilage, had to have surgery for that. Came back strong, felt like I was doing well, and then my senior year, I tore my labrum in my left shoulder, and they basically gave me the option, and they said, hey, you can have surgery and you can go play college ball, or you can wear this brace and finish your senior season off with your friends and just basically hang the cleats up. And so after a lot of thought, it was really hard to do, but I decided to hang up the cleats at that point. It's weird. My dad would always tell me growing up that play hard right now because there is going to be a time that it ends. And so as a kid, you don't realize that, but that was really the first thing in my life that came to an end. And so it was extremely difficult. I had a really good friend that loved playing guitar, so he taught me a couple things, and that's whenever I started getting really involved in church and started realizing that having baseball be my #1 priority is a pretty shallow #1 priority.
So I'm Leland's wife. Very proud to be his wife. We both were going to Portico at First Baptist Church. I remember watching him play on stage because I thought he was so hot, and everyone said such great things about him. So it was who he was and his character that drew me to him so much, and I know that the Lord placed Leland in my life at the right time.
It was 2012. I was sitting and watching a baseball game, trying to figure out what to get my nephew for his birthday, and I just heard the crack of a bat, and I thought that would be one of the coolest gifts if I could make him a wood bat. Honestly, at that point, I had no idea what that even meant. I didn't know what a billet was, didn't know what a lathe was. I remember the first time I typed in how to make a wood bat and it popped up a lathe. I was like, what in the world is a lathe? And the only thing I knew was that my grandpa does wood carving, and so I reached out to him, and he got me hooked up with a guy in town that does wood turning. I mean, I went in, I made that first bat, and it took 4.5 hours. I fell in love with the entire process. I was still in college, so I made half the bat, had to go to class, and then I asked the guy if I could come back to his house and finish the bat in his garage. And so made that first bat, gave it to my nephew. In January of 2014, I opened Gonzalez Bats. Ross he's my brother-in-law.
I had to seek out new work, so I did some side jobs here and there and just trying to make ends meet.
I knew he was extremely good with machinery, and the way that we painted and sealed our bats was not good at all. I thought it was pretty cool, but it really wasn't. The biggest thing with me bringing Ross on, he spent a lot of his time figuring out how to stain the bats, how to seal the bats. I give him full credit for how our bats look.
He was turning them by hand at that point, so that process was slow. From that process and then taking it to the finishing process, kind of had a gap there, and that's where I kind of stepped in and then started coming up with ideas of, okay, how can production get better? One part of my life was kind of crashing, and this one came along, so very fortunate.
Okay, throw it out there. Go get it, Bear.
The support of my friends and family is really, it's honestly what's kept me going. My wife, she has to put up with a lot for me to be able to chase my dream. For example, like last night, she had to go to bed by herself, and I don't love doing that, and I try really hard not to do that, but she's really encouraging, and so I'm very, very glad that the Lord blessed me with a wife that That is encouraging in that way because it takes a whole lot.
He just wants to play.
My dad is one of my best friends, but he has been so supportive in this.
Leland says I have to check my entrepreneurial spirit at the door sometimes because I can let it go wild and then I get off in this tangent. And I'm thinking I could build a rocket ship or something, and he probably thinks he could.
Some stuff that I do probably doesn't make sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to me either. I guess that's the risk part of it.
I could always tell Leland that wasn't good, and he would understand that. But if I ever told him he was, I never told him he wasn't good. Always expected him to expect more of himself than others expected of him, and he lived up to it.
What my dad says, it weighs heavily on for me. So I'm very glad that he is supportive in what we do. And in October of 2016, we have some really good friends. They were just amazed that, I make custom wood bats. And that next week at church, they said, hey, some of our family is close with the Mowers, Joe Mauer. He was the catcher for the Twins, and at the end of his career, he's the first baseman for the Minnesota Twins. And so he said, I'm actually going to be at a birthday party where Joe's gonna be. Would you be interested in making him a bat? And so growing up, I watched Joe growing up pretty much his entire career. And so whenever he asked me that, I was like, yeah, I'll definitely be making him a bat. And so he was leaving in 3 weeks. So quickly made him a bat, and whenever I did, I wrote him a letter. And it basically just said, hey, this is who I am, this is what we believe as a company. The biggest thing is if I can get some feedback on my bats. I sent the bat off, sent the card off with my friend, and they sent me a picture with Joe holding the bat, which was pretty cool. But I didn't hear anything. After that, I honestly started thinking in January of 2017 that I was going to close the business and just be done with it.
I remember we went on a walk, and he had said that he had been praying about it, that he wanted to close it, and but for some reason he felt like the Lord wanted him to keep it open. And so, even though it's publicly known, there's a lot of struggle and a lot of hardships when you're trying to make something work and putting 120% effort into it. And so I just know who Leland is, and so I want to stand beside him and help him because it is exciting and I love it too.
I tell Leland all the time, Rachel as your wife could have shut down your dream in a heartbeat just by the words she said, just by the, being frustrated, anything. And she has been nothing but uplifting for him. And we just can't thank God enough for her.
We're extremely fortunate to have the Harrisons in the loop as well.
But mainly because I believe in him and I know that he can do it, and so that's why I help him.
And then in March, my friend texted me and he said, dude, you're never gonna believe this. Joe loves the bat, he loves the wood of the bat, and wants to talk about getting more for the season. Whenever we decided, hey, we have something here, let's go ahead and get MLB certified. We contacted the MLB, got a hold of them. They sent us everything we needed to know. So beginning of September, I started realizing we don't have the wood that we need. So I just started praying, and I said, I have no idea, because I don't have the money to do this, because each pallet of wood is about $10,000. I don't have that money. 2 or 3 weeks go by, I'm on Instagram, and I just so happened to see Chip post today a video saying, hey, we're gonna do this contest. It's called Chip Starter, and what we want you to do is submit a video of what your dream is. I thought, well, let's give it a shot.
And I am the founder and CEO of Xylo Bats. We are a wood baseball bat company based out of Wichita Falls, Texas. We believe $25,000 would help get us to the next step. Thank you, Chip and Joanna, for giving dreamers like us the opportunity to live our dream out through this contest.
I submitted on Sunday, found out that we were approved for the contest on Monday, and we would hear back by noon, I think it said in the afternoon of Tuesday, if we're a finalist. So I started texting my friends about 6:30 saying, hey, didn't make it, that's fine. Well, then 7 o'clock, I get a phone call from, all it said was the number, and it said Waco, Texas, and I thought, there's no way that this is it. And so I answer it, and she tells me that we're one of the 6 finalists.
There were like 2,700 videos that were entered, and here we were, the only business that was chosen. We were just overwhelmed with emotion because of the vastness of it.
And so the big surprise was that, all of us ended up winning our financial amount that, that we wanted. We believe in every process of our bats, and so we only buy the best wood. We buy our wood from a place called Leather Stocking Billet Company up in upstate New York. At that point, we run them through our CNC machine, and it does the rough cut of the bat, and then we move it over to our hand-turn lathe. We do a hardening process. What's special about ours is that we use deer antler, turn the lathe on, and we run that antler down until the wood changes a different color. But what it does is it condenses those fibers on the outer part of the wood. So after that point, we sand it and cut the ends off, and then we take it to our staining area. So we do the first dip, then we have to wait for 24 hours, and we sand that off because that can tend to be pretty rough. So we'll sand it off, make it smooth, and then we logo our bats. We just logo it with a vinyl. Then we do our second sealer. That's a little bit thicker. It's a little bit more durable, but it also seals that logo in. Once it seals and dries, it goes to our engraving machine where we can pretty much do any kind of custom engraving. What people don't realize, when you own a company, the only thing that people see are the good things. So, on our social media, we, just like any other company, we try to make everything exciting. What people don't see is the fact that I was up last night until 2:30 making bats, or I can't sleep past 5 a.m. anymore because I'm so used to getting up at 4, sometimes 3. One time I started working on bats at 1 a.m. And made them till 6. Never recommend doing that, but it takes a lot of hours. For me, who believes in the Lord, I think when we're in the moment, we don't realize what He's doing, but now I can look back, and He knew all along that the plan wasn't for me to play baseball, but it was for me to make wood bats, and I think that's cool because it makes me realize that He can use anything. My hope is that my impact in the MLB is that the guys that I rub shoulders with will be able to know that being a great father and being a great husband is worth so much more than your baseball career, and there's life after baseball. It's for them especially, all they know is baseball. And so that's my hope, is that I can just play a small part in their lives outside of baseball, and that they mean more than who they are just on the field.